Welcome to Conscious Dominance, a DSRX studio production with Eric and Andrew. In our weekly conversations, we explore how we approach our committed relationships as a powerful catalyst for mindful leadership and inner dominance. As men who intentionally lead our powerful feminine partners, we share insights for discovering how the craft of consciousness deepens our capacity to love, serve, and connect with our true selves.
Once you get the game, like what game you're playing, what are the rules? How does this work? And the game being life and growth and what it is to be in this path that we both are embarking on, which is taking full responsibility and the path of conscious dominance, the path of polarity, the path of having a relationship where you're not going to tolerate anything but a dynamic that is in its integrity and in its polarity. There is an opportunity to do massive growth, but that growth is really hard. And there are times when you have nowhere to go and you are fully you're at a kind of a level where you can't go to someone else. You're by yourself and you're in it. And there is also in those moments, if I go to Rachel, I will rupture the relationship and it will necessitate a repair with her of some sort. But when I realized the repair with her is incidental and inevitable, if I repair myself with myself. And so the actual repair that I have to do constantly or continually, or especially in these moments, is me with me. And when I really sit with it, I am repairing a betrayal. It's a self-betrayal and takes on different flavors, but it's when you've stepped up and you're in a new field, life's full potentials, and you look back and you look at you and see your life and you see how many times you betrayed yourself, you betrayed yourself, you betrayed yourself, you betrayed yourself, you betrayed yourself. And then here you are. And that frequency of who your potential is, which actually you're actually close to, but your lived life shows so much evidence of falling short of that, filling that gap, that feeling that's in between there is really truly feeling of betrayal. And when you are betrayed by someone else that you've loved, that you care for, and you realize you've been betrayed, there's, especially in your masculine, you want to fucking kill. Like you want to kill. You are pissed. And so you can't help but want to kill yourself. You're pissed at yourself in a way that's super violent. Like it is. And so that's what I want to speak about a little bit more, is really fleshing out the gap and really honoring what a masculine growth journey is and how challenging it is. And once you strip away all of the addictions, all of the things that have kept you from feeling your pain, and you're sitting with it, you're sitting and you're looking in the mirror at all the ways that you have fucking betrayed your fucking self and its potential. And you have to sit with that. And everything in you wants to fucking kill that fucking little weak piece of shit. That's you with you. And keeping and like finding the little kernel to see that little boy and see that as a little boy and start to love him. That's truly the repair. No other repair matters. Fuck whatever. Everything else is downstream of repairing the relationship with you and your little boy.
I think about the phrase of being a mirror, the way a relationship is a mirror to us.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, when we get out of our self the relationship will be like, there'll be the ripples in the pond, like when you throw a rock in the pond and the ripples go out from that. But that will calm itself back down. But the reality is that it will calm itself down immediately when we calm ourselves down. And we can't calm ourselves down when we are in that self-betrayal, in that self-denial. How can we ever calm ourselves down when we are at war inside of ourselves? And that's where this whole game, like you said, you have to know what game you're playing. The game you're playing is self-acceptance. All of the, like that anger, that rage, shut down, the numbing, all of it are just ways that we are trying to avoid the reality that this is true and we've acted like this. And sometimes we build our whole fucking life on the ways that we've acted to try to be good or do right. And the reality is, the reason we're angry, like you said, it's because you've betrayed yourself. You have abandoned the truth of who you are, what you need to try to keep the peace, to try to please her, to try to do something. But the reality is, the repair in the relationship, like you said, that happens immediately. That's the easy part, because she is always just reflecting back to you your own level of centeredness. The more centered, grounded you are, the better the relationship is. And the more centered and grounded, for me, not, the more turmoil happens. And when you get really sensitive to that, by the way, this thing that guys do so well, where we like pick up on our woman being off or angry or upset or displeased with us, when we're in that self-abandonment, we see her starting to get activated, and then we're like, what's wrong with you? And this is, I think, gets at your point a little bit, is that instant reaction of finger pointing. Like, you now are upset or off, and why? What's wrong with you? Or what did I do wrong? Or we get into this finger pointing, blaming game where we're either trying to blame her or blame ourselves. And blame is always avoidance in and of itself. The reality is, if she's now, when I see Dawn start to get off or a little activated or a little frustrated, she's reflecting back something in me that doesn't feel safe and calm to her. Period. I have to go inside myself and find my own centeredness, my own groundedness. And then those ripples, they just calm right back down.
Yeah. And that practice of groundedness, the practice of showing up to yourself and going through this work, especially when you have a woman that's so there for you and so surrendered and so submissive and such, and when you're off, whose fault it is? That it's yourself, that it's you with you, and it's often you with the previous version of yourself. And you can't help, or at least my struggle is to be upset at the previous versions of myself. When I'm upset at myself, I'm upset at my previous versions of myself. Like I'm forgiving somebody pre 2-3 years ago. It's not me now that I'm upset. Like I'm good now. But there is this previous version of myself that's created the mess or the patterns or the bad habits, whatever shit, didn't show up, didn't do his job, didn't do his work. And now I'm dealing with all of his negligence. It's like being on a job site and you're showing up to work and the guy that came before you that was supposed to do his work didn't do his work. And you're like, what the fuck? I got to do all my work plus all his work. Hey, what this fair?
Years ago, where I realized that who I was meant to be was over here.
Right.
And I've called this going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. Like I realized my life was way over here and I'd been running towards this thing, this false version of me, this thing that I thought I needed to be, or that I had created in my own head, is what was the ideal or the good version of me. And I was going that way. I went that way really fucking hard.
Right.
And then when you realize the gap between, for me, I'm a deep thinker. I like to write. I love music. I love to really be calm and still and be in the nuance of life. Direction of basically push button, make money, and looking for zeros in a bank account to give me the worth that I was after. That I realized all the worth was back at that core. I've been running away from. When you realize that gap, that's where that pain comes from. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm way over here, and the real me was way back there. Be different than I am to achieve my potential.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's the false game. That's the lie. That's the wrong game to play, because you're going away from yourself. If you're looking for your potential in achievement, you're looking for your potential in a woman, you're looking for your potential anywhere else, you always end up farther away from yourself. This is why we betray ourselves and how we betray ourselves, because our potential really is inherent. It's based in who we are, and we don't have to go somewhere else. We have to come back to ourselves. Come back to that person that we would have been if we hadn't tried so hard to be someone else.
That's so well said. That is so true. It is so true. There's a grace, the simplicity, the grace and simplicity of really being back at your core. And I think that's where you have to, though, to get there, you do have to shed some habits, shed some addictions, shed some patterns that keep you from sitting with that essential core. Like there's got to be, like you spoke about the stillness. We got to get actually to the stillness to actually have a conversation with and sit with that being. And it is real, the repair and the rupture and the betrayal, self with self. And you said the word self-acceptance, and that you can't help but feel like if you self-accept, you're going to accept or that it's okay the way you've been. I think it's so much a part of my head that if I accept myself as I am, I'm accepting this previous version of myself that's caused all this mess. How dare I accept that? That seems like the opposite of what I actually need to do. And so I would love to hear from you when you say self-acceptance. How did you accept the parts of you? Let's speak about that busy part, or the part of you that felt couldn't get it up, especially essentially, and couldn't show up to your woman in the way that you would want to, and felt weak and feeble. How did you accept those parts of yourself?
It was one of those big realization moments that I had, where I had this aha moment that if I can't accept myself where I am now, everywhere else that I go, I'm still going to be unhappy with it, no matter how far I go or how great I get or how much I achieve. If I'm not able to accept myself here now, then I'm going to be in the same constant state of disapproval of myself, the same constant state of dis-ease and unhappiness, no matter where I go. It's a paradox, because self-acceptance, when you're not happy with your life being the way that it is, isn't about validating the parts of yourself that you know need to be better. It's about getting back to being in touch with reality and saying, like, where I am is where I am. This is okay. Rather than I hate this and I want to get away from this. Because if we're running away from something, we're running away from ourselves. Again, the journey is always inward. If you want to be in this real sense of dominance, it's always an inward journey. It's not a going somewhere else journey. And so if we hate ourselves, if we hate the reality of our life right now, if we hate anything about our current circumstances, we're going to try to get away from it. But where we're trying to get is back to ourselves. So if we're hating on ourselves and trying to improve ourselves, we're only going to make the problem worse, because we're going to do more avoidance rather than more acceptance. So, you know, it really for me started with it just dropping the judgment of reality. I can want it to be different. If you're 100 pounds overweight, you can want it to be different. But the reality is right now it's not different. And so if you can be okay, this is like where I am right now is okay, and just drop the resistance to reality, or I've called this raging at reality. Like I'm so pissed at what's real that I have to battle against it. Instead, I challenge people to work with reality, to come to a place of acceptance first, then make changes that help me honor myself. And then I can make changes where I'm okay now, and I'm okay with every change that I make to my life to make it better, because I'm not always trying to run away from something. I'm honoring myself more and more with every change I make, rather than getting away from the part of myself that I hate more and more with every change I make. In self-betrayal, and just perpetuating the self-betrayal. How I did that, to some extent, I didn't really start doing it until I dealt with the reasons that I hated myself, which was doing that trauma work, and getting into EMDR and working through and cleaning up messy foundation. We've used that term a lot in this podcast. The foundation of our life is really the beliefs we built about ourselves when we are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old little boys. And everything is built on that. Until I cleaned up that foundation, I couldn't do that, because I was trying to build more. I was trying to make changes and do additions on a messy, sloppy, not solid foundation, because I had to clean up those beliefs I'd built about myself, like I don't deserve love. If I have that belief operating at the foundational level of my life, like I don't deserve love, now I'm going to be taking actions to validate, perpetuate, and recreate that for myself, to basically push love away, to continue to prove to myself that belief is true. So that's where it all starts.
It sounds like you had to take inventory of your beliefs, of your core beliefs. That's part of it. That's like a step.
For that which we aren't aware. So you can't take inventory of a belief when you don't even realize the belief is there. So yes and no. The things that I knew were there, which I didn't know what the beliefs were. What I knew was the shit that I had been through.
Right.
And I didn't know what I had created for myself out of that shit that I had been through.
I totally agree with you. And I think one of the challenges that I'm going through right now is to see my life and see that the common denominator is me. And that the amount of shit that I've created in my life and challenges, though they may appear to be other people's faults, though they may appear to be other situations, I seem to be in situations again and again that are not in a trajectory of necessarily that I would classify as, hey, that's fun. That's a great life trajectory. It seems to be the shadow of that. Seems to be something that's more what we call challenging. And why do I keep having these challenging situations? And they may have a different look, but they're not necessarily. What point does this serve? Is this because one of my values is grit and I just love challenges? And so I'm just like, unconsciously just create challenges in my life because I just get off on really hard situations. I don't know. The more that I do this work and reveal these beliefs at the foundation, I sit with parts of myself that feel more intensely despicable. Like, it's not like it gets, I don't react as much. I don't live from those places of despicability, but I have to sit with and look at myself, and it's more disgusting than ever and more repulsive. And
Because you're more aware.
that's a helpful response. It's true.
And this gets at one of the biggest cliches in the book, which is you have to fall in love with the process rather than being concerned with the destination. Fuck the process. But really, we don't ever get there. I don't want to guy who's got it all figured out. I'm just really what I am, and I think what makes my life different or unique with the stage of my growth that I'm at is that now I see these things when I see them very clearly. It's not that I don't ever see them or I don't ever have them. It's just that I've gotten pretty good at taking responsibility for them and taking ownership of them. And, you know, when shit gets stirred up for me, I don't point the finger at Dawn. I don't point the finger at the weather. I don't point the finger at any circumstances. I just look at myself. How can I be solid regardless of circumstance? And the process for that to me is what's become rewarding and fun, because now every time that something upsets me or bothers me or scares me or anything, I just see, here's another opportunity that I have. And again, cliche 101, every problem is an opportunity, but when you start looking at it that way, it's a much better way to live life. It's a much more, there's so much more empowerment when you, when something happens and your immediate response is, how can I be solid in this? I don't want to blame the weather or blame my wife. I want to be able to be solid regardless of circumstance. So anytime I don't feel that, I go, oh, cool.
No, I agree with you. And then I'm going to say something that's, I know I'm playing the victim card here, but I will play it. The religion, I'm telling you, it fucks with you, because I agree. It's not like I'm blaming the weather. I'm not blaming my wife. I'm not blaming anything but me. And I think I am a sinner. I think that I am fundamentally flawed, fundamentally evil and dark, and that those parts of me are to be banished. And reconciling that. I wasn't raised with my parents as much as I was raised by my religion and by my Sunday school. And I was such a firm believer in my religion going all the way through. And one of the premises of it is the notion that sensuality is evil and is something to be discarded, disparaged, and it fucked with me growing up. And obviously I've moved through it and moved on, but I haven't fully moved my core. Like, it still feels like I'm betraying my family, like it betraying some part of me that is, it's just hard to describe. I don't know how to say it other than it's like, it feels like raw in my core. If somebody's like taking off a part of me and it's, you need to go through here, then you have to take your skin off and feel everything with no skin protecting you.
I feel you, I hear you. You said, you gave yourself the answer to this whole in the words that you said. You gave yourself the entire solution to the whole thing. Because you were talking about being a sinner, being flawed, right? You said that I am a sinner.
Mm.
Who's the one who believed that? Who's the one who adopted that belief, who agreed? We're back to the 4 agreements, those episodes we did a little while ago.
Yeah.
Who agreed to adopt that belief? This is something I've been working, like Dawn's been working through, and I've been working through it with her and watching her work through it for herself, is the concept that religion didn't do this to her, because she has different but similar religious upbringing. Oh wait, religion didn't do this to me. I maybe didn't have much choice, given that I was a little kid and I didn't know any better. But I did choose. I chose to go along with it. I chose to believe it. I chose to accept the premise that I'm flawed, that I'm broken, that I'm a sinner. And what I've seen her come to much better terms with is me that agreed to go along with all of that can also agree not to anymore. Premise that I'm flawed, that I'm broken, that I'm wrong.
Yeah. I would love to talk to her about this topic.
That would be a great conversation between the two of you. The thing you said a while ago, Eric, that is helpful towards this whole repair concept, this idea. I think the words you said about this growth of masculine embodiment is really hard. We can make a story for ourselves out of that challenge, right? We can make it hard, which can be a part of what gets stuck. Is it really hard, or is it just different?
It's the best. Like there has been no better time in my life than I would say the last 6 months, where my default frequency is a masculine energy that is still, and hum is less. But it feels like there are these earthquakes that come up that disrupt it. And they feel like fucking tsunamis, where the wave, like I could feel it coming. The water goes out and I'm like, oh shit, here it's coming. It's almost like before I used to have these bad migraines, and there were all these little telltale signs that it was like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. And it would, my vision would go blurry. And it was like, okay, I got 2 hours before the fucking lockdown. Debilitating migraines. Debilitating. This is when it's interesting I would bring this up, because this is when I was in college and teenager, the height of my incongruency with my religion and my sexuality. And it was literally when I started accepting myself as a sexual being and really living that out, that the migraines just went away. So I find this to be interesting, that there's still this tsunami, and it could be like minor things that sort of trigger it. And then it's, oh shit, here we go. And I know there's this wonderful book that's about upper limit. It's usually right before I'm about to do something really cool. And there's going to be something really awesome. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like the premise of the upper limit book is this notion that we were wired like the thermostat at a certain level, and that we rise up. There's always things in our life that try to keep us at this sort of plane. And to get to the upper limit is actually, we have to get into our zone of genius. And I do feel like my zone of genius is being in my masculine in a conscious way. It is something that I do elegantly. And when I'm there, I'm refined. And my integration of my power, my strength, my virility, my kill instinct, and my grace and my love and my gentleness, like it's woven in a really beautiful way. And I can attest to having the most incredible woman on the fucking planet. She will speak to that. It's also littered with these like moments of it's triggered. It's like it triggered these storms that come in. And it's almost like they like peel it all away and they just reveal this little child that's like shivering and feeling like a sinner. And that the answer is not me. The answer is me living a different life that's like in accord with God. And how dare I stand in for God? Like, how dare I think I have the power to be in this state? And I think it goes back to your other podcast that we spoke, but really being a reflection of God. And when it's almost, go ahead. I know that I struck a,
How dare you accept your own consciousness? How dare you be yourself? That's what's really at the root of
yes,
that.
yes.
I keep coming back to the Four Agreements today, but in the introduction to that book, the story of a guy who is essentially has gone through this awakening process, and someone, like, people start seeing him as special, and they go, "Are you God?" And he goes, "Yes, I am God, but you are God too."
Hmm.
We're all our own expressions of the energy of consciousness, and our own godliness is our individuality, our awareness of ourselves and our authentic self, soul that's inside of us, that uncorrupted, innocent fruit, pure essence of our individuality. Claiming that and living that is the spiritual journey, the hero's journey. That is to me, the entirety of everything that there is about spirituality is reclaiming that essence of yourself before religion, before your parents, before everybody tried to tell you who you needed to be, to become, would have been, had they all left you.
Yeah.
And all of the ways that you weren't left alone are not places that you were victimized, places that you were shown your tendency to self-abandon, so that you reclaim those. Like, they're all opportunities. And that's the hardest, but not hardest thing at the same time, to accept, oh, they didn't do this to me. I did it to me, for me. I accepted this belief about religion and who I thought I was supposed to be, so that I could transcend that constraint and that limitation, then have awareness of it, because you need that darkness to see the light. You need duality in order to come into oneness. So all of the places that we betray ourselves are necessary parts of our journey. They're the darkness, they're the fissure in self that we need, because through the transcendence of that fissure, through the healing of that wound, through the coming back home to ourself, through the repair, see who we were meant to be, and we can actually have awareness of it. And that's where self-acceptance, to me, comes into this whole thing. Is we have to accept ourselves on the other side of that fissure, on the side of that wound, accept that it's there, so that we can heal it. And then when we can, not only do we get to live a healed life, but we get to live a healed life with the awareness of who we are, because the break happened and then the repair happened. If you or anyone else listening to this can really go back and listen to what I just said a few times and capture what I'm getting at there, that is the meaning of life. That is the meaning of spirituality. It's everything you'll ever need to know about what it means to be a human, as far as I can tell.
It's true. I think you're spot on. The path of that, though, the journey of that is real. I think it's not linear, and it's not, like you said, there's all of a sudden you're there and you're done. And I almost feel like the reward is you get bigger challenges. Like anything,
To a certain
you
extent.
get.
To a certain extent. I want you to continue, but I want to temper that with the fear that somebody might hear in that is it's just going to keep getting harder and worse, which isn't the case. When you actually heal something, it actually gets to be healed. You are for a while going to see bigger things and deeper wounds, but you even get to heal those. So this isn't like a lifetime of it getting more and more complex, hard, complicated, stressful, painful. It gets better.
I haven't gotten there yet, but
Well, then that's for you. Like, seriously, if you keep this up, it get better.
I know it does get better. I agree with you, but I still very much am in a place where I'm going through slaying some dragons. And it is to do in life, in some retreat, not where you could just say, I could take some time off, but like in the middle of we're moving, in the middle of a complete reckoning with our life. And I also am having surgery in about a week. So there are these major life events that are like all compounding on each other. And then we're also expanding and growing. And there's all these dynamic things. And then you're stuck with these. And I think this is life though. This is what it is. And then being a father with these teenagers, every single person I know who's at all in any state of engagement with life is filled with responsibilities that feel immense, and the luxury of being able to do the work seems untenable. It seems like a luxury, and it seems like in the short term something suffers.
We start looking around us at what do I need to do to be accepted, acceptable, lovable, and to make sure that the people around me take care of me. So we start abandoning ourselves from the moment we're born. And we get into, I'm 44. I really started this, like the heavy duty version of this work about 5 years ago, maybe. Let's just say 40 years of practice at abandoning myself. I've got to have a little bit of patience with myself and think like, God, if I spend 10 years working on showing up for myself, how much better? Stretch that timeline out, because I spent 4 decades basically telling my true self to fuck off. Whatever it is you think you want, that's definitely not the answer. It's what everybody else thinks you needs to be and how you please other people. It's what you have to go after. So I spent a good 4 decades, 40 years telling my true self to get lost. Why? It doesn't make any logical sense to think that in 3 months or in 6 months or even in a year or 2 years that I'm going to be able to live a fully authentic life. But I have the patience with ourselves.
It's true. It's 100% true. I remember the moment 2.5 years ago. It was exactly 2.5 years ago where Rachel and I were in the midst of a scene or like a sexual encounter that was like a dominant submission, like in a very sort of classical archetypal of those things. And she stopped and she's like, your heart is closed. And she stopped the whole thing. And can you do this without closing your heart? I had no idea what she was talking. I didn't even know what that meant. And I broke. Like I was like, fuck this. And I closed down and I got triggered and I froze and I acted like an idiot. And then we stopped and I didn't even go back. I still have a hard time going back to scenes because of the awareness of how much of my life was I doing those things from a place where I was unconscious and where I was acting from a place with a closed heart, from a lower vibration, you would say, or like other things, and be able to reclaim and do this with an open heart and move forward with that journey of that. And it's challenging. And it was 3 months later where we reached out to you And I was like, what the fuck is this? What's going on? I didn't know. I didn't know what that even meant. I didn't know how to act with an open heart. I had no language for that. Because to me, and I think especially because of religion and everything, to open up my heart meant to open up all my lusts, all my pain, all the messiness of my emotions and of my feelings and of my sexuality and all this stuff. And I was like, that sounds like a terrible idea. And it was really, truly these conversations and your example and this, it was like, oh, there's a whole other way. And I started mapping it and understanding it, testing it and living it and committing to it. And I am a different person. And I am still 2.5 years later. I know what game I'm playing. I understand it. I understand the fabric of it. I understand the feelings of it. And yet your words of patience really land, because I'm like, oh yeah, it's just doing good. I think sometimes I just need to tell myself, like, you've made a lot of progress, Eric. Good job. And keep going. It's all right.
Shit, we put those walls up for a damn good reason. The reason that our hearts aren't open isn't because, oh, I just want to be a dick. Because I'm protecting really, really wounded part of myself. And,
Yes.
And what is wounding? We think it's coming back to your religion example. Religion told me I was a sinner. My parents give me the affection that I needed. Whatever, this happened, therefore I feel this way. That is the wounding that we're protecting. At some level, it wasn't they did it to me, it was I did it to me. Even though I was too young to know any better, even though I can't be responsible, I can't blame myself or hold myself responsible for abandoning myself when I was 2 and I chose to please my parents rather than continue beating on pots and pans with a wooden spoon because I wanted to, where we're like, I'm doing what I want to do as a little kid. And your parents go, the fuck you are. You're going to stop it or I'm going to spank you. You're going to stop it or I'm going to send you to your room. I'm going to punish you for doing what you want to do. And we learn and train ourselves and teach ourselves to abandon ourselves. Doing so, and then we get to realize over time that we actually can do what we want to do when we can keep our heart open rather than trying to please everybody else, can just be aware of the impact that our actions have when we open our heart so that we can receive feedback and then take that feedback into consideration. Text to care about how you're impacting the world is to have your heart open. To be afraid of upsetting anyone by doing what you want to do, that's having your heart closed. And from the outside, they can look very similar, but from the inside, one is very honoring of the self, and one of them is dismissal of the self.
It's really well said. I think there's a lady that I was listening to talk about conscious parenting, and she talked about it's 2 things. It's moving forward with honoring of the child's feelings, and 2, holding boundaries. Like, those are essentially the 2 jobs of a parent. It's one job, but it is keep the child safe and honor their reality. And it's through boundaries, and then it's honoring their feelings. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what conscious dominance is. Conscious parenting and conscious dominance are the same thing. We are the stand-in of the parent. And in order for us to do this with our woman, we have to do this to ourselves and with ourselves. And there is no one else that can do it for us. And that's the big thing. We get to this point. One of the things that happened just in the last 24 hours with Rachel, I was like, oh my God, I cannot keep thinking I can go there and feel better. I keep thinking that lie, that there is this chance that somehow she's going to say the thing or do the thing that's going to relieve the pain, that's going to help me to feel better. I am just like craving that. And yet, as soon as I just surrender to the fact that she's not there for me to feel better, and I take the time to go feel better and go for my walk into nature, go sit by my stream, go look at the stars, I feel better. I know how to take care of myself, but it feels so fucking lonely sometimes. It feels so fucking lonely to be there and there's nobody else that's there for you. And that's what this is. Like, you have to face this like existential loneliness that there's nobody else that's going to be there for you. And it's powerful.
And in that, you can realize that you can always be there for you. You have always been there for you. You will always be there for you.
Yeah.
It's a joke and it's funny. I forget the comedian was that said it. Wherever I go, there I am.
So true.
But it's such a powerful piece of self-awareness to realize that, holy shit, the one person that I've always been trying to get away from is the one who's always been there for me.
So true.
And the part of me that always, when I get in those patterns too, because like I still have them come up where it's like, I just want Dawn to hug, feel better. and I can do that. She's going to react in the way that she reacts when I put her in the role of mommy instead of put her in the role of lover.
Yeah.
The role of submissive, the role of wife. If I put her in the role of mommy inside myself, she'll go there because back to that mirror concept. She will mirror back to me wherever I go. There she is.
Right.
I can do that, but it's going to impact the relationship. But if I can recognize that I'm always there for me and that I actually am okay right now, the things that we get reactive to, especially when we start wanting our woman to make us feel better, is reacting to something that happened in the past, which I mentioned the mommy thing, right? When we're little kids and we need our parents, we need mom to, then we feel scared, and we go to mom to the hug and say it.
Yeah. Some of us didn't get that though.
And so you're constantly seeking it. You're constantly seeking it from outside of yourself. And it's a feeling of being afraid. But the reality is now, 40 some years later, you are actually objectively okay. It's just that something is reminding you the feeling of not being okay.
Yep.
And then you're seeking comfort, seeking it externally because you are in mental place, the reminding, and even that word, right? Like our mind is reactivated. We are reminded and we got back to the same energy of when we needed that comfort and we did. And so now
So
we
true.
go to our
Yes.
partner to look for it, and we take, like, we do damage to the potentiality of current relationship. We are reacting to something that happened 40 years ago, 45 years ago.
It is textbook. And 100% I get this feeling of being a baby or being injured and not having anyone there. And literally was told, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about.
Got that one.
And wash your mouth out with just pretty much just shut the fuck up and don't have any issues. Be good. And the core being a baby, being a little child, there is no place to go to that where you can be in your feelings and it's safe. Is you're right. It's been a life of seeking that and finding that and just trying to numb these feelings inside of me and the sensitivity that's been deafening and so intense and so much that I've had to face this desire that be like, just, I want to kill myself. Like and really truly face those because it's too much. It's too loud and it's too toxic. And it feels like I'm a problem to the world. Like I'm just going to hurt the world and I'm going to be, and that feeling of this, what I'm going on inside is toxic, is a sinner, is awful. And then being in our zeitgeist that a white man and my sexuality is a problem, it just adds to it. And I think that's why I'm here with you speaking about this publicly, putting myself out there because you're not a problem. Men, your sexuality is not a problem. Your desire to be dominant and to be a leader and to be the man and to stand up and be in your power is not a problem. It's not, it's actually the solution. But it, like you said, the way to get there is counterintuitive. It's actually not to beat up your little guy. You've got to be self-acceptance of the parts of yourself that are parts that are weak or that need that tenderness and that kindness and that gentleness. And I think that paradox is essentially the entire crux. If you don't understand that, you don't get it. Like that's it. But you can't get to that without opening up your heart. And to open up your heart is to unleash all of the pain and feelings and sensitivities that you spent your entire life trying to protect. So it feels, and to do the work is actually going to take there's going to be a period of retrograde or healing that's going to be an issue. And I don't know how I would have done it without the tools from you, from Rachel, from Marosha, from the work that she does. That's not even her work, not her specifically, but her work. And then you and these other modalities, it would have been just too much to go through the landscape of those feelings. And I have a lot of compassion for most people that don't want to go there because they don't have the support to go through it with it being just too painful.
I remember a book by a Jesuit monk named Anthony de Mello called Awareness. And he talks in the book about, or he says in the book, like, you don't want this. All of what comes with this. You don't want it. You need, and what he goes on to say, or the point he goes on to make is, this is the path to real, true self-love, but there's a part of you that is not going to want to go through this or deal with this, and it's going to hurt. And you mentioned the reason why you're here sharing this with men. For me, why I'm here talking about what I talk about and sharing what Dawn and I share about it on our podcast, and I'm talking to you here, is, again, I don't want to portray myself as somebody who's finished, but I am somebody who has worked my fucking ass off for almost a decade or more than a decade at trying to be the best man that I can be, to be as solid in myself as I can be. And I want to show people that it's worth it to go through it. Because it's not just a constant life of figuring out how to handle all of the tension, stress, pain. No, it's actually opening up. I think you taught me this phrase, feeling it to heal it. Because on the other side of that pain, of going through that pain that was stuff, is a life of calm, a life of centeredness, a life. You are always enough for yourself. You really can get to a point where very little shakes you at all. And then get to go through life just feeling okay all the time. That's a realistic way to go through life after this period that you're in, which is a period that I've been in, just did it a few years before you. But the other side of all of this is you get to feel good and okay and solid and grounded and just stable inside of yourself all the time. That's
Yes,
possible.
it says. And I'm starting to feel that way. Like I said, I do feel, I'm so glad. If I hadn't started feeling like this, I would be like, turn around. We went the wrong direction. Get going back. But I'm starting to feel enough of the frequency of what you're speaking about. And now it's just these little moments, like I said, they read like earthquakes or like a volcano eruption or a tsunami, whatever natural phenomena you want to make. And I think that's an interesting thing too, that it does feel very primal. I think that you understand that too, that like we're part of something that's much bigger than ourselves. This is not just Eric and his little petty ego. Like this is actually, I'm dealing like with, I feel like what it is to be in my masculine energy in a more refined way that's inclusive of the monster without shaming that. But how do we bring that into alignment and into this? And there is a sort of shifting and sifting that's painful, that is real. And you can't just cut off one side. That's what religions try to do. It says, well, this is going to be a problem, so let's put that aside. How to embrace this? What's a wild, freaky, bucking horse that's just like, what the fuck are you telling? You know, we had an episode where we had the inner feminine and the inner masculine. To me, what if the dragon in me, what if the monster is actually my inner feminine? What if it's actually, what if the truly killer side of me is actually the reactive, that energy, that sort of force? What is that? What if that's the feminine? That becomes like, oh, I have to start being able to be my own horse whisperer. And then it gets real. I think that's a good place to stop unless you want to have anything else.
No, I think being where this episode is going to land too, I think guys listening to this, I hope the message that comes through this is open yourself up, have some compassion for all of those places where you agreed to go along with the hurting of yourself, the wounding of yourself, out of necessity, out of whatever reason why you did it, and let yourself start to feel that pain and learn to have compassion for yourself rather than hating on yourself. Learn to find acceptance for yourself rather than denying it away from yourself, and learn to love yourself because you are the one who will always be there for you. The love you've been looking for outside of yourself is you. It's always been you, and it will always be there for you. You connect to that, and that's how you, and that doesn't put you in a position of being a pussy. That immense position of strength when you don't need anyone else to validate you or to feel better, when you can just feel good because you love yourself, you trust yourself, and then you can step into a real kind of strength.
So true.
Very different from the kind of strength, what you may have considered strength before. That's
so true.
What I hope the message, at least my side of, comes through. And
said, that's beautiful. I love what you just said. That's going to be a reel right there.
Coming soon on Instagram.
Coming soon. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you so much. So thank you for holding that space. I feel like I think I'm at a place where I can do it authentically and hold myself and not fall apart, but be raw and be vulnerable in a way that I think could serve something publicly.
I have an absolute ton of respect for you and your ability to do that. Yeah. That massive respect for you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate you too, brother.
Yeah. I feel like that's what I'm here to do. I always just, if you have a challenge, face it head on. And the challenge is that I'm in the middle of going through a lot of shit while I'm trying to go public. So why not just own it?